Hey, and goodness to you. I say goodness because I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, or night when you're watching this, but it's always good. So, especially if you're watching the video, recognize it's good. And if you're getting ready to watch live, don't worry, you're not late. Welcome to Glue Wednesday. I always like to get on a little early to give Facebook a chance to build the audience, let people know. And that's personal choice. It's something you consider when you are getting on doing a live video. Like for instance, it says my broadcast starts at 1. So I don't like to wait until 1 because then once that Sporty King is live, you may be doing something. You say, oh my God, that's right. And then you need to close something out. Not that you're going to miss a great deal because you can watch the videotape, but I like to just give people that little warm up warning. So, and then I can get to do my shout outs because this is my interactive day. What's going on? My sister Marsha is in Chicago. That's the jazz pacemaker. I wake up on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to her jazz show on I just need to know the link. But go on and Marsha, put the link in there. All right. Okay. But yeah, if or follow, click on her name and see her page, and then you'll see where she does her jazz broadcast from. But we've got less than 4 minutes for today's message. But like I said, this is my interactive day. If it's your first time, what I do is I do a broadcast on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My Monday message is a taped 1 to 2 minute inspirational message to get the week going. My Friday is an 8 to 12 minute message where I read one of my original poems and then drop it in. I call it Gift Friday. And then you get to keep that poem and use it in your life. And then on Wednesdays is Glue Wednesday, which is my interactive day. It's a 30 to 45 minute, and I get to talk to people in the thread and tell Marsha to drop her radio station in there as she just did, and so that you can always go on and check that. And my glasses had too many. It looked to me like it's only two W's. WWMVL is not WWW. Okay, but either way, that might not be the link. So hey, technology, let's figure out how to use it. So again, this is my interactive day. If it's your first time watching Glue Wednesday, well, welcome. Glue Wednesday was born in 2017 when I looked at the fact that so many times people said, well, Wednesday is hump day, but it was talking about based on a 5-day week, old school rules. And see, back then we just looked at Monday to Friday, or you worked on the weekends. And we didn't consider that there's a 7-day with flex time. That's something that we saw come alive was the flex time. All right. So, but I said that Wednesday is actually the middle of a traditional 7-day week, regardless of when you work. So Wednesday is the day that keeps the week beginning and the week end together. And so I call it the glue. And you see, it puts me in one of my favorite poses, a prayerful mode. And so I decided that we didn't need to have hump day. We need to have glue day to keep it together. And my glue is GLUE. God's love undoes everything. Not that it'll tear it apart with less than 2 minutes to go to today's message. Not that it'll tear it apart, but that it will, whatever's torn apart, it will bring together. It will glue it back together. Because again, we don't need to get over. Especially in these pandemic days, we need to keep it together because there are going to be new ways for us to keep it together, and that's the key. We're developing new things in our lives. That's why I don't call it the new normal. I call it the now normal. Now, how are we functioning? And please, one thing I suggest: stop talking about when we get live again. Live in the moment. Don't you know that there are people who, I live it as this is the way it's going to be until the day I die. And we got less than a minute today for today's message. But I live it as if this is the way it's going to be until the day I die. I don't know when I'm going to die. So imagine, if I die today, this is the way it is. So why should I take away from enjoying this day? This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So stop worrying about when we get this way, when things come back to normal. They're not going back to normal. They are going to be the way they are going to be in the now normal. Now, this is how we do it. Come on, you watch the movies. You saw back in the prehistoric days, they didn't have internet. I'm not even going back into the 60s. I'm going prehistoric on you. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have phones. This instant world, microwaves. Come on, think about progress, y'all, and think about how you are going to be a part of that progress. And it's not for it to go back. You may not be a part of that progress. It needs to go forward. So it's 1:00 today, and we're going to go get focused on my message because what I call it the GAS series. And GAS is for GAS, Glue Alphabet Series. When I started, like I told you, I started doing Glue Wednesday back in 2017. Well, last year when the pandemic hit, I upgraded it and started doing a broadcast on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. What's going on, Roger Carroll? Welcome back. We missed you last week. All right, so I got two of my Chicago sisters on here right now. I love both of y'all to life, and y'all know that. All right, but what I did was I upped it to where I had a broadcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then just like I say, this is the interactive day. What I started doing is I said, hey, let's do an alphabet series where every week I'll focus on a different letter and have you be my co-authors to the message. And so people would drop a word beginning with the next letter coming up in the alphabet. They would drop it in the thread, and then I would incorporate those words into the next message. And then we get a hello from Vic. All right, so what's going on, Vic? Bless, that's my homeboy. I'm not going to address every single person and give all the history, but that's what the GAS series was all about. Okay, thank you, Vic. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna get that post. If y'all want to get a shout out, put stuff like that in there. But anyway, but the GAS series. So every week, and you can do it now. You don't have to wait, whether you're on live or on the tape video, is take a word that next week's letter focus is going to be the letter P. So a word with the letter P, just drop it in the thread, and I will work to get that incorporated into my message. So what we did is with today's message is this week's message will feature the letter O. And here are my co-authors. Vic Morris, he sent the word okay. Ramona Hopkins gave me open-minded. Deb Joy Hart and Roger Carroll Roger, I call them my entitled sisters because they just got their word in this morning. And Deb Joy gave me only, and Roger Carroll gave me omit. Well, you know what? I'm in the moment. Didn't I say that to you about how important it is to live? This is the day that the Lord has made. I start thinking about today's message on Tuesday evening, and then I usually will write them on Wednesday morning while I'm listening to Marsha's show, which comes on 8:00 Eastern. No, 7:00 Eastern, but slow down. What does it come on, Marsha? It comes on 7:00 Eastern, right? 6:00 her time. All right, and it's a 2-hour show. Anyway, that's when I usually write the show while I'm listening to the music. So I did that this morning. Sometimes I'll know in advance what the subject is going to be, but very rarely, because I like to be in the moment and talk about something that we need to be talking about. So these are my co-authors, and today's message is on, O-N, obviously, not, because sometimes things are really not that obvious, are they? But so when you think about being on, you may think it's obvious, but it's not. Okay, there we go, Marsha. 6 to 8 Central Time. She's in Chicago. That's why I said 6. Yeah, okay. 7 to 9. So I was right about that. At least I did the math. I got that in there. All right, but obviously not, because it's not obvious. Some things that we think are obvious are not. In fact, that obviously seems like today's message. But guess what? It's not. The true message is winning through perspective, punctuation, and presentation. And I know that next week's letter is going to focus on the letter P, but I just had to get it in now because it's always important to recognize that, back to the letter O, you see, opinions are based on position. Opinions are based on position and depend upon whether or not you're on the 6 side of the 9 or the 9 side of the 6. See, that's what opinions are based on. Are you on the 6 side of the 9 or the 9 side of the 6? If you drew the letter 6 in front of you and somebody stood on the opposite side, they'd see a 9 while you see a 6. That's what perspective is about. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me see if I got some quick shout outs there. We got Marsha. Hey, well, go on. What's going on, Patricia? Chicago is in the house, boy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And then there you go. Thanks to the love plug. All right. Okay, you got it. No problem. That's what we do. All right. So that's the key is whether you're on the 6 side of the 9 or the 9 side of the 6, because opinions are based on position, how you see it. I used to be what was called artist in residence at Purdue University in Indiana. And one time I was in charge of the writers group. It was the writers. They had 4 ensembles, so it was the writers ensemble in their Black Cultural Center. They had dance, acting, writing, and singing. So one time I had about 8 to 10 students, and one time I made our assignment. We went into the library, and I had everybody sit facing a different direction, and then they all had to write a poem called "From My Point of View." And they were only allowed to use their peripheral vision. They couldn't turn their head. So we got 10 different poems about what was going on in that room. That's the same thing that goes on in your room. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Can you win through perspective, punctuation, and presentation? And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. All right. So things are not always as obvious as they seem or are intended to be. Yet that doesn't mean that we should omit them. And I know it's not Gift Friday, but what I'm going to do is share a poem here and let that make the point. This poem is called From My Limited Scope. And it's from my limited scope, and I think it's very appropriate for all the discussion that we're starting to be open-minded enough to engage in. Okay, because we're being open-minded enough to engage in discussion about social justice, racism, policing, different things like that. But to open up that discussion, I think that this poem, if you're involved in such a conversation, you'll be able to use this poem to open up that discussion and set a mood of calm, compassion, and commitment to using the number one communication skill, which is listening. Too bad this isn't the focus for the letter C, right? Because we got all of those C words in there. But that's what you have to do, is you have to set up that environment so that you can have this type of a conversation that is very touching to a lot of people. And that's why we're talking about how can you win in having this type of conversation. So here is From My Limited Scope. Shall I call the psychic knot line or have my palm blue? Or would it be better if I do all I can to find out about myself based on what I hear from you? You're the man who understands menstrual cramps, the winner who says you never lose, the woman who forgot to wear an athletic cup, the fresh out of college boss. Okay, I got to take that back. You're the man who understands menstrual cramps, the winner who says you've never lost, the woman who forgot to wear an athletic support cup, the fresh out of college boss, the black who's never been white, the left that's never been right. You've always lived in the same place, never traveled or visited afar, never flown or taken the train, and you never have driven a car. Didn't marry, no kids, not a drink or drug have you taken. The son who's never been a daughter, yet you freely give your opinion with authority and act as if it's you who walked on water. Now, from where I sit, I cannot answer every question. In fact, there are times where I'll add to what is asked. For as similar as my experiences are, they're different. So understanding rather than answering becomes my task. From my limited scope. Understanding rather than answering becomes my task. From my limited scope. And that's what we have to recognize. See, we have to put ourselves in our own shoes. You can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I always say I may not have ever walked in your shoes, but I've sat in your row because we're all going through something. We've all been through something and we're all going through something. But we have to understand rather than answer for someone else. Then, while we're being such good listeners in this limited scope poem, while we're being such good listeners, you know what? That's the perspective. Now that moves us on to reacting to the punctuation. We're reacting to the punctuation as we're listening, because what's the punctuation is expressed by your tone or our emotions. Thus, we stand the chance of being, as the poem also indicates, on, obviously not on level playing fields. Yet, let's realize up front that that's just a fact. The fact that we're not on a level playing field, that's a fact. So each person has a different advantage, not a disadvantage. By not being on the level playing field, that doesn't put you at a disadvantage. That means each person has a different advantage based on what? Their perspective. So we can control our expectations, slow down, and we have to measure our words. That's what your tone does. It makes you slow down and you level your expectations and then measure your words. That's your punctuation so that your point can get across. So let me ask you this. Who were you in that poem? Were you the man that understood menstrual cramp, the woman that wore an athletic cup, the brother that's never been a sister? Who were you in that poem? And as you think about that, could you clearly see how the other person didn't have enough information or history to understand your point? Depending on who you were in that poem, can you see that instead of being angry about that you have to be in position to help them with that? In that poem, could you see that if you, instead of being angry about that, you have to be in position to accept their help with that? Yeah, see, no, I didn't make a mistake. Same sentence start, but you have to be in position to help somebody understand, and you have to be in position to be willing to be helped to understand. Which is also why I would recommend writing down your feelings before any major discussion geared toward problem solving or relationship understanding. And you can write them down before the meeting, calling, or even during your conversation so that when you speak, you have a better chance of being clear, which would be your presentation. And then return us to the first ON, which is obviously not. And I repeat it because we have to consistently repeat to ourselves that we're not the only person in the room. And it's actually okay that we're not on a level playing field. Why? Because what's more important is that you recognize life is an ebb and flow. And inferior is a feeling, not a reality. Someone says they feel inferior, or even someone says about that person feels inferior. It's a feeling. It's not a reality. You are not inferior to anybody unless you have that feeling in your mind. And that has not, whether it's money, whether it's status, whether it's location, you are not inferior to anybody. And you're gonna see why in a minute. All right. But where was I? Okay. I repeated that the obviously not, because inferior is a feeling, not a reality. What we have to envision, and here it is, what we have to envision is ourselves taking turns as the subject matter authority. See, that's why you're not inferior. Think about how geese, the birds fly south. They fly in a triangle. Why? First of all, what they're doing is they're cutting the wind velocity. That's why you see airplanes in the shape they are. They're cutting through the wind. That's why you see if you're driving, you get behind a truck. it cuts the velocity. Even if you hear about race car drivers, they get behind somebody else and let them fight the wind, and it makes the second car drive a little smoother. That's what's going on. So when birds fly south, the reason they're in that V, they're cutting the wind. And who's doing the most work? That bird in the front. And everybody else has a little less fight in terms of the wind, and they can last longer. And so after, and that's why they're honking, encouragement. Yo, you got this. Keep going. Fly, go, girl. You know you doing some flying out there, girl. Turn when you want to. We got your back, girl. You doing the wing. You doing the thing. And then after a while, that bird gets tired, and they go down. And two or three go down with them. Your nature studiers know all about that. And they go down with them and wait for the next flock of birds to come. And then they go up and get on the end. And somebody else takes over. Birds do it, y'all. We do it in life too as humans, but we have to recognize when it's being done. So that's why we never feel inferior to anybody. We have to envision ourselves as taking turns as the subject matter authority. Again, you'll get a copy of this poem once it's over. This broadcast is over. I'll put the link in there. But look at the categories. Which one applied to you, and that you're not the subject matter on? I'm not the subject matter on menstrual cramps. I'm not the subject matter on being a daughter, because I've been a son, but I can tell a daughter what it's like to be a son, right? You know what? I've never married, so I can't tell you about marriage. I can talk with you about being single because you've been single too. I don't have any kids, but I bet you what? I can talk to you about being an uncle. See, take turns being the subject matter authority. And a lot of people like to say the subject matter expert, but I like authority. Because again, to me, expert means that you got it totally. And I'm not knocking expert. That's fine. But I like authority because to me, authority demands more respect than an expert. That's just something that I believe, that authority demands more respect. And then there we got what you got there, Marsha. The birds, they switch positions for leadership, but also want to go back to that. A different perspective from a limited scope. Yeah. And that's why it's limited, because there's certain things that you just don't know, as well as what? You don't know what somebody else is going through. So even if you have, I just said Marsha and Roger Carroll, my Chicago sisters, they have that in common, but they still don't know what one another is going through. And that's what you have to recognize. You may think you have so much in common. There's where it's obviously not. You don't have as much in common as with the other person as you think you do, which is why I also, again, I recommend writing it down. But therefore, the last thing, let me get it back to where I am. Okay, you have to be in position to get them help. And obviously, and here we go, inferior. All right, here we go. All right. But here's the key to being a subject matter authority. And that is, we have to be on top of our game. We have to be on top of our game, not just to level the playing field, but just to get on the playing field. You have to be on top of your game. So that's why you're not worried about a level playing field. It'll never be a level playing field. And that's not an admission of submission. That's a recognition of the facts. We take turns. So how can it ever be a level playing field? Just know when it's your field. When do you have home court advantage? How are you using it? When it's your time to lead, are you ready to lead? Because nobody cares about your opinion if you don't speak from a place of authority, and that you're not confident about who you are and what you represent. So be on top of your game by doing what? Focusing on you. Y'all know I like to always say, choose your messengers carefully and recognize that you're carefully being chosen as a messenger. So you have to be on top of your game. I got to be sporty 24/7. Now, I always tell you, I can't be up and positive 24/7, 365, 24/7, but I'm up more than I'm down. I'm positive more than I'm negative. I'm going forward more than I'm going backwards. And there's nothing wrong with reframing going backwards to realizing that every now and then you just want to step back and take a look at your work. But 365, 24/7, I have to be about making that work happen. I have to be sporty the whole time. And that can be a problem for somebody else. Somebody might not like you being you. Nope, you didn't freeze. I froze because we need to let that freeze in front of us. Someone may not like you being you, but the only way for you to win, and we're talking about winning through perspective, punctuation, and presentation. The only way you will win is you recognize who you are and you commit to doing that. You focus on the basics about who you are. You fine tune the fundamentals, and those fundamentals are perspective, punctuation, perception, and presentation. Because what they do is get what I call a personal win. A personal win, WIN, what I need. What do you need so that you can be a winner? And so what you have to do is you have to see yourself as a winner when it's obvious that not all people do can see you as a winner. And so when we focus on the basic and fine-tune the fundamentals, perspective, punctuation, and presentation, we're at the top of our game. We're at the top of our game. And at that point, when we're at the top of our game, we gain control in knowing that we truly must compete only with ourselves. I only have to compete with Sporty to be better than I was yesterday. And that's how I get what I call my personal win. WIN. What I need. Because what do I need for when it's time for me to lead? What do I need for when it's time for me to do this broadcast and bless you? And then have you bless me with your comments because I need that too. See, we all need. So let's just take turns. Let's not worry about a level playing field. There's no such thing. If you get focused on thinking that there should be a level playing field, you're behind the game. You're behind the game. You have to recognize this is not a level playing field. And on this field, here's my position. But one thing you cannot do is play from the stands. You can't win from the stands. You got to get on the field. So even if it's an unlevel playing field, get on and make sure that you know how to hold on and make this thing work out for you. Because once we understand that we only compete against ourselves, guess what? We always win. And that's what it's all about. Let me see what we got in the comments. All right, let's mix some of them comments up. Because that's my message. I just want to go in and have a little chat with you. All right, we talked about switching position. Yep, it reiterates the importance of being in the proper, what were you going to say? In the proper frame of mind, probably. Yeah, you have to be in the proper frame of mind and in a frame of mind about who you are, about your value, LOVE. Let ourselves value everyone, especially ourselves. You have to, and reiterate, because we have to repeat over and over and over again. We learn through repetition. So there's nothing wrong with us reminding ourselves that we are obviously not on the same playing field, but that is not a disadvantage. You're happy when you know it's an advantage. Why can't you be happy when you think when you don't think it is? All right. So yeah, keep that perspective, and amen as always. AMEN, a message that everyone needs. We all need to hear it over and over again. Aha, there you go. Okay, proper place and time. Yep. And okay, so that's it. And sometimes, and isn't that what happens too? Sometimes our message gets broken up. So this is also where I talk to you about perspective and punctuation. What happens if your message gets interrupted? That's why you have to know what your message is, because maybe you won't have enough time to deliver the full message. So that's why writing it down is important. Can you get your message succinct enough for it to be understood in case it gets cut off? And then it can get picked back up later on. Okay. See how everything always falls into place? And what you say, Pratt, that's right. Because it don't matter what I was saying when she said that's right, because that's what you have to recognize, is that you are right. You are right. But you have to have a perspective that opens up areas for you to see it another way. So you can be right in another area. Not wrong, not that anybody's wrong, but can I be right in another area? If all you know is what's around you, how can somebody really consider you wrong? This is if you grew up in this area and you've never traveled, you know that in the poem it says you've never traveled, or if you've never seen how someone else lived and all you got is what you see on the news and what the people around you say, that becomes your reality. And so you're not wrong. It's just that that's who your messenger is. That's the music in your ear. That's what you've got to make that change for, so that you can get yourself some different kind of right and a different kind of truth and a different kind of being okay. That could have been one of okay was in the words today. And a different kind of thanks, the best kind of thanks, because it's thanking God. You have to have that proper place again, all right? And then, yes, for sure. Hey, what's going on, Tanya? Coming in from New York. Right. For sure. Amen. And then what you say, Roger Carroll, each of us is uniquely who God has made us, and we show up at our best when we are that unique person. You have to be you. Last year I competed in Toastmasters International Speech Contest, and my speech title was called The Greatest. And I talked about how when I started in my speaking business and motivational speaking business, I said I wanted to be the Muhammad Ali of motivational speaking. Now, what I was saying was how Muhammad Ali talked about, hey, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the greatest. Yeah, so I said, I'm going to be the greatest. And then I said, you know what? After a couple of months, and this is real, y'all, after a couple of months in the speaking business, I decided, you know what? I don't have to be the Muhammad Ali of motivational speaking. Muhammad Ali is the sporty king of boxing. Because I don't need to be Muhammad Ali. I need to be sporty king. I need to be the greatest me. I don't need to be the greatest Muhammad Ali. So that's what you're saying there, Roger Carr. You have to be you. You will only, and this is a line from my speech, I got to tell you, you will only be successful when you choose to be yourself. Because when you choose to be yourself, your success will be measured in lessons. Because you may experience a loss, physical or spiritual, or according to the game clock, whatever. You may experience a loss, but it becomes a lesson that you can now move forward based on what you did. There's no regret. Say, oh man, maybe if I had, because I did it Roger Carroll's way and I lost. Man, I lost because I did it Roger Carroll's way. Maybe if I had done it my way, this would have happened. Whereas if I had done it my way from the jump, now I can say, well, you know what? I did it my way, and now I see that I need to change that. So I don't have to say, because see, now I got, if I lost doing it Roger Carroll's way, now I got two things to do to learn the lesson. Now I got to go back to doing it my way, and if I still lose, now I've lost twice, and I've lost time. If I lost it on my way the first time, I got a shot now of I'm going to do it differently. And I may do it Roger Carroll's way the next time with her input. But at least I got mine out of the way. And the lesson is, Sporty, you can't do it your way. Here's the help you need. Open up. Didn't I say that in the poem? Open up. You can't just be you, all right? And what you say, Marsha? Scripture. Know your place and get in it. Know your place. And by the way, before we're getting ready to close out, but remember, put a word in the feed beginning with the letter P for next week's message. And if you're watching the video, you can still do it. There's no time limit on when you put the P in there. I didn't say when you pee in there. Don't be peeing on your screen, okay? But yes, scripture, right? Know your place. And there's a P word everywhere. Know your place and get in it. God has made a place for everybody. And that is what's edifying. God has made a place for everybody. Come on, y'all. Y'all know you've been through some stuff. Are you using that to live in regret or in testimony? I'm with a men's ministry that we meet every month, and we also talk and share scripture on Marco Polo. And so this morning, one of my brothers, Shanga, he shared a message where he talked about how sometimes God may seem to be holding you up. You may seem held up, and he, in the context of what he was talking about the airplanes and life, and so I went on and replied, You know what? This is also where you have to remember to control your vocabulary rather than allowing your vocabulary to control you. Don't let words only mean what they mean on the surface. This is what we did with today's message on, right? And so what I said is being held up by God does not mean being stopped. Being held up by God means being edified, as Patricia said, it's being held up. God is holding me up, so I can't fall. I can fall, but I won't touch the ground. That's another poem I wrote because I can see the bottom, but it can't touch me. See, so I'm being held up by God. That's a testimony. So that's what you want to do when you run into stuff like that. Oh man, they're holding me up. No, they're holding me back. No, God is holding me back because He's saying that ain't for you. What'd you say, Marsha? Know your place and get in it. That ain't for you. So you're being held up for when your place comes so that you can get in. You're being held back because it's too soon. Even Jesus said, it's not my time yet. So we've got the same thing going on. Pace is my P word. No kidding. The jazz pacemaker. Boy, did that fall in. All right. So look, let's come to the end of this meeting. And thank you all for participating in Glue. And, I'll get the poem in there. If you ever want to watch a series of Glue Wednesdays or Gift Fridays or Monday Morning Moments, go to my YouTube channel and they're right in a row. And I would love you to go to the channel and subscribe anyway. Even if you don't stay there, go subscribe and come out. That's going to help me in my marketing, y'all. Let's understand what's going on in this now world. Remember, it's not a new world. It's a now world. And now we have to do things differently because we have to make sure that we personalize technology. So even as we see, the P word was coming up, right? But to win, your perspective is how you can personalize technology, because you've got technology, you've got people who send things and they think, oh, sure, they sent that to everybody. I do a mail merge when I send out my mailings, and a lot of people respond because I have found a way they know it's a mail merge, but I make a personal message of it so they can feel like I'm talking to them, because the truth is I am. Our spirits do the connecting, y'all. Our spirits do the connecting. Okay, spoiler alert, now that you asked, I got a game coming out. I created some inspirational cards. You'll be hearing about that within the next week, where it's about talking to the spirit. They're called passing thoughts, because what we share, ladies and gentlemen, we don't share physically, we share mentally, and we share spiritually. So let's pass thoughts to one another, to uplift one another, to get our wind through our different perspectives, how we punctuate, how we make the tone of an inviting tone, and then how we present it. Because once we put it on the plate properly, everybody will eat, okay? And everybody will stand up from the table nurtured. God bless you. Thanks again for joining me on the message. Be sure to share it, and I'll see you on Friday for Gift Friday. Well, I have to come up with a new poem now that I went on and gave you today's poem. And in fact, by the way, the link for today's poem is going to be in the Gift Friday section. Okay. All right. But, be safe and be smart. Don't, my perspective, don't get caught up in conspiracy theory. We are now, this battle is with the pandemic. And so I'm doing what I think I need to do to help my family and friends by making sure that I got my shots. What are you doing to help us? My belief is that by getting my shots, I'm doing what it has been by subject matter authorities say, here's what we can do to combat that. I'm joining. I'm going to find out whether or not I joined the right team at the end of the game. Nobody wins to the game. It's over. And then what they say also, the game ain't over till the fat lady sings. A lot of things. But this is also why I got to write down what I'm going to say, because I could go on and on because God is so good. All right. Y'all take care. I'll see you then. Over and out. Ciao.